He didn't say a word, called him to the bedside.
Okay. So Mr. Jackson asked him for something to help him in sleep.
Yes.
And Dr. Murray told you that he had used lorazepam.
Ativan 4 milligram IV was his exact words.
Okay. Did he tell you that it had been given in 2 separate doses of 2 milligrams?
No, he did not.
Did he tell you that he'd also had Valium?
No, he did not. Actually, he answered negatively the question as to whether there were any sedatives or narcotics involved.
Did he tell you he'd also had Flomax?
No, he did not say that either.
Okay, so, but you know that Dr. Murray told Dr. Cooper about these drugs, don't you?
I did not know that at the time I was talking to Dr. Murray. No, I did not.
Well, you know now, though.
Yes, after the fact.
And Dr. Cooper had been told the 2 milligram doses, correct?
She might have not. I would not be able to tell.
And after he told you about the Ativan, 4 milligrams, he really didn't give you any other information, did he?
No, he did not.
You asked him when he'd given it to him. He said he didn't recall.
Correct.
And you asked him when he noticed that there was an arrest. He didn't recall.
He did not recall the time.
And you asked him when EMS or the emergency medical services arrived.
No, my question was, when did you call EMS? Not when the EMS arrived, I believed.
You didn't, this report here, I guess you didn't write this investigation report, did you?
I did not write an investigation report.
Okay. So if you were quoted by the police officers who took your statement that you asked him when EMS arrived at the scene, that would just be, they're misquoting you.
I couldn't say for sure.
Okay. And he did not know.
He did not know. Basically, he did not know.
He basically, after he told you he'd had Ativan, gave you no additional information.
To the answers that I asked.
Okay. Did you kind of get the impression that he wasn't too interested in talking to you?
It is not my impression that he was not interested in talking to me. It is from his replies to my questions, I had some concerns. Number one, as I said, time was not on our side. Number two, Ativan 4 milligram IV, even though it was quite unusual to give IV for insomnia in the outpatient setting, it was not a typically very large dose in the inpatient setting. But the fact is that the patient was lying there, lifeless,
Your Honor,
on
Ms.
ventilator
Strickland,
support.
I don't think there's a question pending, and I don't think she's answering a question.
I'm going to allow the answer thus far to remain. There being no objection, you can ask your next question.
4 milligrams of Ativan. Should that put a patient to sleep?
It typically could put a patient to sleep, yes,
Fact is,
especially IV.
if you were going to put a patient to sleep with the lorazepam, you'd start off with 1 milligram, wouldn't you?
PO, sir. PO, by mouth.
Okay, just
A
one.
pill.
And 1 milligram IV would be a little bit stronger than by mouth, wouldn't it?
Definitely, yes.
But you, even if you're doing it by mouth, you'd start off with 1 milligram.
Yes, the indications for using Ativan for insomnia, the typical adult dosage recommendations would be 2 to 4 milligrams VO. But I do not typically use Ativan by mouth or by IV in the outpatient setting, if at all, that we need to use it to treat insomnia. It's usually in the inpatient setting. And I don't typically use that in the inpatient setting either. There are other drugs that are non-sedatives, non-narcotics.
So the recommended dosage for a normal adult For insomnia, it would be 2 to 4 milligrams of Ativan.
PO, yes, by micromedics.
And how long would it take, if you did that by IV, to produce sleep?
By IV to produce sleep? What is the dose, sir, that you were asking about?
Well, let's go back to let's go to 2 milligrams. How long would that take to put a person to sleep by IV?
It was pretty quick, but it all depends on the host, really. It is pretty quick.
When you say pretty quick, how long?
5, 7 minutes.
5 or 7 minutes?
Yeah. But again, I said it depends on the host. As one hosts that are naive, they could go to sleep very quickly. For people who are typically drug users who use a lot stronger narcotics than that, it might take them longer because they have a higher drug tolerance. So nothing is set in stone. That's why I always go low and then titrate it up to reach the desired effect.
Okay, if we get back to the original question, the 2 milligrams, you'd expect that to cause a person to go to sleep within 5 or 6 minutes.
Yes.
And how long would they sleep?
Hours. The half time to eliminate the drug by IV is coded as 14 hours plus or minus 5 hours.
So would they be asleep that entire time?
Not necessarily. As I said, it depends on the host. What has been going on with the host? Are there other drugs on board? Have they been active throughout the day? What is their physical state? What is their health status? It all depends on that. But if they go to sleep after 1 or 2 milligram pill, usually they can sleep through the night. They wouldn't wake up at 1 in the morning and ask for a little bit more. That's not what I typically see in the inpatient setting.
Okay, and then if they didn't go to sleep and another 2 milligrams were given, you'd expect that to put them to sleep for sure, wouldn't you?
Yes, if they had not developed very high drug tolerance. People who have developed very high drug tolerance would require a higher and a higher dose with time to reach the desired effect. Unfortunately, the effects that the heart, the lungs, and the brain could tolerate, that toxicity threshold, did not increase with the tolerance threshold.
So if a person was a benzodiazepine addict, did it take more than 4 milligrams to get them to sleep? Is that correct?
Typically, yes.
And what about 20 milligrams?
20 milligrams of IV,
Yes,
Ativan,
yes.
that was a very large dose that I had never used myself. That was a very large dose.
It could kill you, couldn't it?
Let's backtrack a little bit as to what you mean by killing. Ativan did not really cause direct respiratory depression or cardiovascular depression. What it did is, Ativan does not cause respiratory depression, make you stop breathing, or make your heart collapse and not pumping. What it does first is it acts on the brain and make you really sleepy. And that brain would be so sleepy it would not tell the diaphragm to breathe, and therefore the patient goes into respiratory apnea, meaning not breathing anymore, unlike some other drugs.
So I take it 20 milligrams could do that.
20 milligrams is a very, very large dose, and it could act on that much faster and bring that effect about much faster. Sure, it would depress the consciousness so quickly, and from that point on, it would cause the patient to stop breathing, for sure.
Okay. So Ativan's very effective for insomnia.
I don't,
Do you have expertise in that area?
I don't typically use sedatives, narcotics to treat insomnia, sir. I use them for procedures.
Okay.
Yeah, like to put in a line. So is it effective to induce sleep for us to finish our procedures? Yes, it is.
Can Ativan be used to induce anesthesia level of consciousness?
Not typically to induce sedation, yeah, but not
Okay.
general anesthesia.
And once you take the Ativan, you're aware of the fact that the half-life in a normal individual would be 14 hours?
IV, yeah. PO was less. It's about 12 hours.
Okay, so, and that means whatever level you get to, it should reduce in half over
That
12
period
to
of
14-hour period. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if Ativan was given at 2 o'clock or, say, 2 milligrams at 2 o'clock a.m. and 2 milligrams at 5 o'clock a.m., you'd expect it to still be in the system at 12 o'clock, wouldn't you?
It would, yes. We can do the calculations and see what is the expected projected dose. It's going to never be so accurate, but at least an estimate.
Okay. Now, am I correct that, are you able to correlate dosages of Ativan, either oral or IV, with particular blood levels?
No, I don't typically check blood level for Ativan, so I won't be able to correlate that.
Okay, so you just look at the number of pills that you give and what the effect is.
Yes,
And you start off low, and if that doesn't do it, you do more.
you do more while watching for side effects, because as I mentioned earlier, with higher drug tolerance, it requires a higher dose to reach the desired effect, but you may pass up the toxicity threshold, and so have to be carefully monitored as we ramp up.
Okay? And do you watch when it's PO per oral as well?
We typically always put patient on cardiac monitor with that thing, but when we do IV during a procedure, yeah, we watch throughout the whole procedure, and we have people to watch, the nurses to watch until the patient fully regain consciousness.
Now, when you are watching the person who you've given an IV dose of Ativan to, what causes you to know that it's taking effect?
Well, our desired effect would be the patient going to sleep and being able to tolerate the level of discomfort that the procedure may cause him or her.
Okay. And when you do it by IV, that effect goes very quickly, doesn't it?
Pretty quick, sir, yeah.
Now, if you do it orally, by mouth,
Yes.
with pills, the effect takes longer, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
And during that length of time, a person's speech becomes slurred, doesn't it?
Yes.
Now, being a cardiologist, are you also certified to use propofol?
Yes.
You use it from time to time?
I used it, but I always use it with certain conditions, with certain personnel, and with
I
certain
just asked you a
equipment.
question. You can answer it yes or no. You do use it.
Yes.
And when you use it, how do you tell if the person's under the influence?
You mean how do I tell that the patient has reached the desired effect, going to sleep calmly so that we can start the procedure?
What can you observe in a patient to determine whether the patient, the propofol is active and has worked?
And was not responding to verbal stimuli.
Okay. You don't talk to him, do you?
The anesthesiologist that would be assisting us during the procedure would be responsible in determining that the patient has reached the state of sedation that we could proceed with the procedure.
When the patient is sedated under propofol, they're not talking, are they?
They're not. No.
And you never hear slurred speech from a patient under the influence of propofol, do you?
Before the success of induction, you could still hear the patient talking. But after full induction, you would not hear anymore. That's what we would want it.
And when the patient wakes up, you don't hear any slurred speech, do you?
No, because it is a nice aspect of propofol that the offset time is just as quick as the onset. So patient typically woke up totally refreshed and not having slurred speech, as in the case of other sedatives such as Ativans or fentanyl.
The onset from initial induction is very quick with propofol, isn't it?
It is quick onset, quick offset.
Okay, so when you mean quick, a matter of seconds, correct? Onset?
It really depends on the dosage again, sir, but the titration protocol is every 10 seconds. Start slow, as I mentioned. Start slow, every 10 seconds gives a little bit more. Yes, it will be within minutes, the patient would be ready for the procedure.